What is up, everybody? It's your boy Travis, aka Matsu here, and today I'm bringing you a very cool Mimic deck list. Before we actually start the video, make sure you guys like, comment, share, subscribe. Check out my Patreon where I do coaching at the $10 level, and check out PPG for all your singles and sealed product needs. Before I forget, we actually have a very special guest today.
Hi everybody, it's PringlesMan123 here. You can just call me Constantine. I got top 16 with a Mimic deck. Woo!
Yep, you sure did. So I think, yeah, let's get right into it. So why Mimic, first of all?
So I kind of wanted to break it up into the strategic reason for why I picked Mimic in the format, and personally why I did. So Mimic is a really powerful character. Being able to pick up any attack from your graveyard, essentially on both players' turns, is incredibly strong. You can either play really good defense because of it, or just have some crazy kill strings that most other decks have to high roll to pull off. And then additionally, Mimic's +2 damage response is incredibly powerful. We see that same ability very powerful on Mirio, Overhaul, cards like Brute Strength, and it's just how you end up killing people. And then specifically for evil, I think assets like Box Full of Babies, Twisty Surroundings, and League of Villains are incredibly powerful in the format.
Yeah.
And the evil attacks like Tongue Whip and Vile Seizing can really help kill wall decks, either by forcing them to play on progressive difficulty for their blocks, or Vile Seizing's deadlock. And Tetra Terror and Wire Arrow answer the question of, like, if my opponent says, fuck it dude, you can't kill me, those cards are going to pull that off because they're going to be drawing attack cards, and Tetra Terror's Echo also just gives you extra damage.
Yeah, so it looks like you put quite a bit of thought into, I guess, the why of this deck. How do you explain your ratios? Because I know for a lot of people, it's really hard to build this character, specifically because of the fact that you have to play like so many green cards, otherwise your character just doesn't do anything, right? So how did you settle on these ratios?
I'm gonna like kind of answer this with the personal reason why I picked Mimic. So this is basically the first draft of like Evil Mimic, because I knew I wanted to play a set 5 character for Gencon, but it ended up being too late to like pick the guy that I put the most time in, which was Deku 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to make a decision when you submit your deck list. I felt that the so this is a low attack count for a 63 card deck. I'm pretty sure it's like 28% attacks.
Gotcha.
I had chosen that because not only does it help just pass your checks, Mimic can alleviate that weakness of not enough attack cards by just checking a green one and adding it to your hand. For the assets, it was more of what I saw other people were doing on some of their lists, where 16 felt pretty comfortable. But throughout the tournament, it was fine. It was only until like rounds top 16 where I felt like I wasn't checking enough assets to get use out of my character. I'm not 100% sure if that's variance, or I should have raised it up to 19 like Justin's list. And then the foundation count was mainly so I could actually avoid stun hate, and not just be at the whims of my opponent if they decided to like heroic strike me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Something I'd like to touch on real quick is, like, in my opinion at least, the way this deck plays and the way that, for example, Justin's deck, who also played Mimic, got top 2, made it to finals, obviously, they're very fundamentally different, in my opinion. Like, yes, they have the same, like, core concept of, I Mimic, when I check an attack card, I'll grab the good ones, but, like, the things you were trying to accomplish with that were just very different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I could definitely do a similar string to the Chaos list in the form of Tongue Whip being my twisting, and Training Weights is in both symbols, so getting that damage is still there. But I really valued the Breaker from Barrier Shield, Twisty Surroundings, and Chronostasis trigger as a way to get my opponent to overextend and sort of pave the way for my offense. The moves aren't necessarily the fastest, but if my opponent's tapped out, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that basically was the game plan of the deck, right? Like kill them with Training Weights,
Mm-hmm.
and either weaken their stage with Breakers, or rely on Tongue Whip and Chronostasis sealing their character to push through.
Yeah, speaking of that line of card text, how good was that for you this weekend? If you don't mind me asking.
So it was definitely nice against Eraserhead. There was definitely game states where he just couldn't full block it. I'd lead with 2 Tongue Whips, and he'd have to block them because it was basically for his health total. Then the third attack would be Chronostasis trigger as a low, and he just wouldn't have the low block. And so having Eraserhead block on 3 progressive alongside no longer having his speed hate was incredibly huge for breaking the wall against that deck. And at least in our, like, not in the tournament, but in our play testing, Chronostasis turning off Recovery Girl can be a really big deal.
Yeah, it sure is. That is 100% certain.
It's also, I want to say it's good against Overhaul, but I think it's better. It's like, it's fine. If you start with it and they can't fully block it, you get Overhaul to use both of his abilities immediately, and that can sort of pave the way for the later moves to actually hit him.
Yeah, that's very true.
He still gets to block even though you seal his character though, which is annoying, but
Yeah, because the static floats until he decides to actually apply it.
yeah.
But it did just force them to discard a card when, you know, maybe they didn't want to, obviously, which is probably good enough.
I think that was, so I guess, like, since we're on the topic of, like, the attacks and stuff, I know a lot of people were talking about, like, so I watched a couple of, like, the content that people have released already about Gencon, about, like, why I wasn't running a trigger transformation, or they were, like, surprised to see no trigger transformation. And I personally think that card is win more and literally mid and, like, figuratively mid.
Gotcha. Yeah. Huh.
Like, obviously it can do a lot of damage, and finding trigger is very important, but I found myself a lot this weekend not actually having momentum to necessarily do an effect like that. Or if I could get momentum, I felt like the Training Weights ready or the Tetra Terror Echo was more important than just getting the extra foundation effectively.
Yeah, and I think, if I may interject, I think there's like a different style of deck where you might consider playing trigger transformation. I think it's more relying on, like, amphibious ambush to snap your momentum for you, and then maybe play like a trigger transformation afterwards to get your free trigger build and whatnot. But that's not really what this deck was looking to do.
Yeah, and in hindsight, I think maybe I could have wanted trigger transformation in, like, the sideboard for some 20 healthers, because being able to, a lot of the 20 healther games were a bit slower, where both of our stages would be getting pretty big, and we'd just be kind of sculpting to blow up the other from full, more or less. And so I think having a 4-diff that effectively could be 11 damage without any training weight buffs is a solid way to, like, kill a 20 health, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like 5th attack trigger transformation, get 5 damage from its own enhance, and, like, a training weights to set it up to, like, 20 damage because you've already used it so many times.
Yeah, I did certainly die from 12 in my top 4 match against Justin because he triggered transformation and gave it 6 damage with training weights.
Yeah.
It is brutal.
Sometimes big damage is all you need.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's all I want to talk about with the attacks, if you're fine to, like, move on to assets.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, what how do you feel about your asset lineup?
So there's definitely some I felt like I was missing, but I largely think I picked the good ones for the evil symbol. Like, I think Twisty Surroundings is incredibly powerful. League of Villains is as well. I wish I had a second one in the list somewhere. Um, I think I don't really need to talk too much about Training Weights and Trigger. Like, I think every Mimic list is playing those cards at like 4.
Yeah, as you
Um,
should. They're just like the best cards in your deck, far and away.
yeah. I really like Box Full of Babies. It was basically my Fancy Feast. Earth and Evil don't necessarily have as good of a one diff, so I can see them playing it, or Earth and Chaos.
Yeah.
But Box Full of Babies is like a mini Training Weights, getting to give a speed and 3 damage to Wire Arrow, Stomp, and Chronostasis Trigger was really neat. And also just sculpting with it. It is like a cantrip or a loot effect.
Yeah, for sure. And
Um,
let this be a PSA to anyone who's looking at building Mimic. Please, 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 for the sake of your dear old favorite, maybe not favorite YouTuber, don't put Fancy Feast in your deck if you're not playing cat cards. Like, I get it's a 1 diff spam with a good deadlock that can randomly give -1 damage or +2 damage. Just, there are better things, surely. Like, there's no way that you can't find something better to be playing in that slot.
yeah, I did not miss that card. I was not ever. Man, I really wish I had Fancy Feast.
Yeah, for sure.
I do think I should have included Airy and Coda potentially. Um, Basically, I was working on the deck Friday night, and I just was making decisions, and I felt that I didn't want Coda because I was worried about just losing the resource. 'Cause I definitely have a ton of 6 damage moves to my face playing this deck.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, I think the cutting health thing could be a really big deal to turn on like quick tact or like turn on quick tact.
Yeah. Also, just having bonus speed, because most of your attacks are either low or they can become low.
Yeah.
So, like, just having that extra outlet.
Yep. And then Airy, I'm not 100% sure if there was any matchups I would have like any games that would have been won exactly with Airy in stage, but I definitely recognize how powerful that character is now. And so,
Yes.
Yeah, I probably should have had that in my assets somewhere, maybe main or side.
Yeah, Airy is quite obnoxious, especially when it's like a simplified game state where you, I don't know, poke them twice, you have a coping on board, you're like, I'll tap my coping to draw a card, untap it. Like, obviously that's a one-of, but just having the ability to ready and maybe overextend a little farther than you would have because you're getting the free ready at the end of your turn is very good.
And then finally, I didn't play any Mimicry, so I think it's fine that I didn't. That's because my foundations were dog shit, and so Mimicry would then just be like also a shitty 3 diff, where like it's not really copying anything good enough. And I was worried that I had like too many low blocks in my deck. That probably wasn't really the case, but I do think Mimicry didn't have good enough things to copy in this list, so I didn't miss it for that reason.
So
in like version 2, it probably finds its way in.
Yeah. Since we're on that topic, what would you change about the deck if you could change anything? Since you brought it up just now, we might as well get it right into it.
Yeah, it's the foundations for sure. My foundations were basically just cards that could commit to pass checks. Like, the most playable ones were Cooperation, Offer, Shock Absorption, and Quick Tact. There's like little instances where like press conferences, progressive kind of mattered on a kill string. But like a lot of them basically didn't. A lot of the ones that I saw basically ended up not doing anything. I misplayed with House of Cards, but I do think momentum hate of it was largely not good enough. Especially playing it against Amajiki, it felt like if a deck really needs momentum, it's gonna have enough of it that like the one doesn't do enough of a good enough job. I unfortunately didn't get to see a lot of the one-ofs in any of the games I played, so I'm not 100% sure if I want to keep some of them. I think Force Squirt could still be really good. It answers like brute strength or like Lemillion of the big three. Yeah, basically uh, I would overhaul the foundation lineup, pun intended.
Ha 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 ha! I get it.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, I definitely think that speaks to his strength of this character, where like I think like 27 of the cards in the deck weren't the best, and they still were like good enough, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think honestly, it just has a lot to do with like I think trigger and training weights are obscene in specifically this character. Obviously on trigger because like you only really get to use it in this guy. But training weights as well, just being commit for 3 damage that is readyable off of Mag Stomp, or if you have a momentum, or by just tapping any random garbage foundation that you have in your staging area.
And because the attacks were 4 diffs, there was like a lot of times where my stage would just be ready.
Yep.
So like, yeah, just turn the bad one sideways to ready the good one.
For sure.
And then like, I guess the like final thing is sideboard. I also didn't really like my sideboard, but I do think Showdown and Runaway for sure, or like Barrier Shield, like all the good evil actions should like have a place in this deck potentially. I don't personally love Blood Curdle, but I definitely see it finding a way in the sideboard for Eraserhead, because I do think part of the strength of this against the Eraserhead decks was they weren't ready for the strings that I was doing. So like, if you like prepare against this deck like 20 more games, I think the Eraserhead matchup can become like harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like sealing the damage pump can absolutely matter on him, but it's like hard to make that heads up play if you haven't like played against him enough.
Yeah. Did you ever bring in the Nomu out of sideboard at all, or was it just there for like Staff Strike Jiro and the stupid All Might 4 deck?
So I played against Staff Strike Jiro round 1, so I brought it in there. I think I also maybe should have brought it in top 16. I was too much of a coward to just like risk the tournament, risk my tournament life on something I didn't truly test enough. I think it's honestly possible to do this kind of character swap because there is so many more foundations in this deck than the list that Justin had, and I think Nomu can play these assets kind of okay with Electric Stomp. Like Box Full of Babies being a cycle in him can help him find the attacks he needs to actually kill you. And Trigger at worst does just ready and draw a foundation. So like, so long as you're not needing to tap your entire stage, but just like one foundation, Trigger is kind of a foundation on him. The top response works for him, for any character.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Yeah, and then like, if I play more battle arenas, like Nomu can play battle arena and Stomp very nicely. If he just finds enough attacks, he can just fucking send it because Stomp's readying your +2 check foundation effectively.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know specific like Mimic interactions, it was actually ruled that if you are in the process of playing an attack, meaning you make your check, you're going to pass it, and you use an asset to pass that check, you can actually respond with your character for a base, essentially +2 damage on the attack that you're passing, which is extremely strong and another reason why this character is going to be very successful.
Yeah, that was huge. It basically turned every green card I had into Red Riot's the coolest, but I didn't have to flip my card, so like, it was incredibly powerful. And then like, I don't think the DR, okay, for the most part, the damage reduction on blocking didn't matter, but like during the enhanced step, that part of him can also matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Constantine. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this deck profile with me. Also, congratulations on the top. I know it's your first top 16 at an MHA event, so it's huge.
Yeah, it felt good. And thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. Anyways, thanks everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. Like I said earlier, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. Go check out my Patreon, do all that other stuff. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. This has been Travis signing out.
What is up, Matsu Nation? Thank you for watching till the end of the video. If you enjoyed, like, comment, and subscribe. And check out all my socials and my Patreon. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and sayonara.